Yo, pre-season is back. Man United are back in action. And they started their pre-season with a loss, a 1-0 loss to Wrexham. So let's get straight into these player ratings. But first, I'm just going to give you the starting lineup. It was two different starting lineups for two different halves. So in the first half, we started with Heaton in goal, Euro at right back, Maguire and Heaven at centre back, Luke Shaw at left back. We had a double pivot of Mason Mount and Santos, Andre Santos making his debut. Then we had Jack Fletcher ahead of them at cam. Then we had Mbumo at right wing, Dorgu at left wing, and we had Xerxes up front. So Heaton, I gave him a 5. Shaky start, and he conceded a goal. Third choice keeper, so let's not worry too much. But yeah, he grew into the game a little bit, but he definitely had a shaky start. And yeah, the goal we conceded, it finished 1-0, was in the first half against our first team. Euro, he started obviously out of position at right back. I gave him a 5.5. He looked clumsy at times, but that's to be expected as he's a centre-back by trade. Defensively, he was decent. He looks like he's... Because the Wrexham boys, they were ahead. They were ahead in terms of their pre-season. They've had a pre-season game. They're already like 2 weeks into their training. So they was more physical, and they was very physical in the game. Euro, he looked like he's ready for that physical battle this season, which is good to see, being as De Ligt is going through injury problems. So he's going to be called upon more often this season. Maguire, I gave him a 6. He was sound defensively. The only thing I didn't like about his performance today was he was trying to morph into Leacher. Like, he was trying to become Martinez. He was taking 5-6 touches on the ball. It's like he's trying to be a playmaker from the back, but you're not that guy, Maguire. Like, you're decent on the ball. You're actually rather impressive with your carrying ability when he comes out with the ball and goes on a little dribble and whatnot. But taking 5-6 touches on the ball, we don't need you to do that. Like Leacher, that's calm. Leacher will take 5-6 touches. He'll take as much touches as needed to draw out the opposition press and then bop it around him. Maguire, you are not the person to do that. So please, just get it out of your feet and do it quick. Unless you're going to break lines by carrying the ball, then cool, because you have got that in your locker. If not, out your feet, ping it into the midfielders, please. So, moving on. Heaven, I gave him a 6. He was probably the most impressive defender. However, he did make a mistake in the first half, which I feel only he could have recovered from. And recover is exactly what he done. He made a great challenge and won the ball back cleanly in the box with a great slide tackle. He won every duel, like headed duels, ground duels. This ain't statistically, I ain't looked at the stats. I'm saying with what I watched. I watched it live yesterday and then I watched it again this morning. He didn't lose a duel, whether it was in the channels, whether it was in his box, defending his box, whether it was aerial challenges. He won every duel to me. Sure, I gave him a 4. He overlapped once as a left back. You overlapped once. It's not good enough. And then he was at fault for the goal as well because he left his man on the back post to try and defend a player that was already marked by Heaven. And then the ball ended up dropping to the man that he left. So yeah, he was at fault for the goal. I gave him a 4. Mount, I give him a 5. A couple of neat passes forward, but in general just didn't create. None of the midfielders created anything, to be honest, first half. So Mount being the senior person in midfield alongside Santos and Fletcher, he has to take that responsibility to get us ticking, get the ball moving. And he didn't come to the fore in terms of creativity. Santos, I give him a 5. Quite a few unforced errors, especially for the first 20 minutes. He grew into the game towards the end, started to play a few forward passes around the corner, started to link with Mount and with Xerxes a little bit. I think he's a combination player, so I think he just needs to feel out his teammates, understand who he can link with and who he can't. And then, yeah, hopefully he'll become the player that we want him to be. Obviously, I'm not judging him off of the first pre-season game, but yeah, the first 20-25 minutes was, like, when I mean unforced error, like, I mean he's kicking it into... Listen, just go watch the highlights, you'll know what I mean, yeah? Fletcher, I gave him a 4. He was very wasteful on the ball. It's very disappointing for me because I've seen, this is Jack Fletcher, by the way, he was playing as a cam. I've seen Jack Fletcher throughout the academy. He's actually more talented than his brother Tyler, who is now touted for being involved in the first team squad ahead of Jack Fletcher. But throughout their academy years, Jack Fletcher has been the better twin, the better half, so to speak. He's definitely more naturally talented, more naturally blessed with technique, with ability on the ball, final product. Yeah, he's definitely, he even captains the academy team sometimes. And however, it's just not translating into men's football. Maybe he needs a loan to the EFL just to, in men's football, you got to earn the right to play. You have to earn the right to play. So maybe he needs to learn that in the EFL somewhere. And Bumo, I gave him 5. Kept trying, but nothing worked, to be honest. And he kept getting involved too much. Players like Mbumo, like if I'm a coach at United, I'm sitting him down and I'm saying to just watch tape on Mo Salah. You don't need to get involved to be effective. Your superpower is going in behind, getting on the end of stuff, being the finisher. Your superpower is to give those players who get involved, who are supposed to get involved, like Bruno's, your Cunhas and whatnot, you're giving them an outlet. You're giving them an out ball. That is your superpower. So to just keep making your runs forward into dangerous positions until someone picks you out. If they don't pick you out, that doesn't mean you have to then get involved, and because that's not your game, that's not your strong point. So yeah, you got a 5 for me. Xerxes, 4.5. Another chance to show yourself, to prove yourself. And again, it's another chance failed, another chance missed. Everything bounced off of him. Again, he grew into the game a little bit, probably the last 5 minutes. He had a couple of nice touches. He had an instinctive strike with his left foot first time, just went past the post. But in general, like, his main attributes is coming to feet and linking up, being that link-up player, like a Bobby Firmino. But when the ball's not sticking with you, when your link-up play, your main attribute isn't working, it's like, what are you bringing to the team? You're not bringing anything to the team. So yeah, Dorgu, he played left wing. I gave him a 4.5. Again, didn't affect the game. You have to kind of feel sorry for the attackers like Dorgu and Bumo and Xerxes to a certain extent, because the midfielders just didn't get a grip of the game. They didn't create anything. There was no flow to the game. So obviously players like Dorgu and Bumo, it's not one of their attributes. It's not one of their abilities to be able to come to feet and play with the ball and link up and whatnot. That's not their stuff. They're getting on the end of things, or they want to get put in positions where they're one-on-one and they can have duels with a fullback. But if your midfield isn't getting on the ball and getting your team ticking, then you ain't going to get into those positions. You ain't going to receive the ball in those positions to affect the game. So it was quite frustrating for them. Moving on to the second half, though. The young players came on and absolutely embarrassed the first team players. I have to be honest. It was a breath of fresh air. Like, it was like night and day watching the first half to the second half. The young players came on. There was a flow to the game. There was a bit of zip in their passes. There was energy in their press and their counter press. There was a little bit of arrogance, a little bit of confidence. They were trying stuff. They were very progressive, very positive. Everything you want to see in a pre-season game, apart from the goal. But yeah, the second half started with Vitek in goal, Mason at right back. Devaney, the midfielder, who could also play right back, he slotted in at centre back alongside Armour. Harry Amass at left back, Tyler Fletcher, and it got on the team sheet. It said Tyler Fletcher and Collier in the double pivot, and then Dangor as the cam. However, when the game started flowing, you more often saw Collier and Dangor swap. So Dangor would come in the double pivot to get the ball going, to receive the ball off the centre backs and get us ticking. And Collier actually spent most of his time as a cam. But anyway, they were the three in midfield, and then you had Shea Lacey right wing, you had Williams left wing, and then you had Wheatley up front. So yeah, let's get into the ratings for them. Vitek got 8. He was my man in the match today, made a great one-on-one save, which he had no right of saving, and then he was brilliant with his distribution. Obviously, Vitek doesn't want to be a backup keeper. I would have put it to him like that, though. I would have said, listen, you're going to be competing for the #1 spot with Lemens. Now, I would have been highlighting to Vitek, look, obviously Lemens has got the shirt right now, the #1 shirt. However, if he makes a couple of more mistakes like he did for Belgium, you'll be in with a chance. You'll be starting. You're both competing for that spot. You're not designated #2. That's not. I would have put it to him how it was put to him. So obviously he's now saying he wants to go on and be a #1 elsewhere. Fair enough, but please, United, you have to put a buyback clause or first refusal or something in that contract, or at the very least a sell-on clause, because I'm telling you, it will come back to haunt us. Mason started at right back. Obviously, he got a 5.5, sharp passes, but he had at times his touch let him down. But apart from that, he linked up well with Shea Lacey, and yeah, he showed a lot of promise at right back, which is a position which we might need to look to him for. Devaney, like I said, midfielder, stepped in at centre back, done extremely well, considering he's up against a giant in Kiefer Moore. He done wonderful. He was very composed on the ball as expected, as he plays in midfield. But even in his defending, he didn't look flustered. He didn't look out of position. Do you know what I mean? And he was alongside Armour, who I also gave a 6. Decent on the ball. He's basically a regen of Harry Maguire, but left-footed. Decent in the air as well. So he was doing most of the challenges, the duels with Kiefer Moore. And then you had Devaney was like sweeping up behind him, picking up the seconds and whatnot. Harry Amass at left back, I gave him a 6.5. Grew into the game. And once he grew into the game, his end product was evident. His quality end product. Basically, like I said, night and day with him and Luke Shaw. He was constantly getting forward back. If he weren't overlapping, he was backing up play. He was available for someone to set it back to him. And when he did have time and space, he delivered beautiful crosses into the box. Tyler Fletcher, I gave him a 7. He influenced the game. He got us ticking. Unlike the first half, he actually got us ticking. He was very calm. He was a skipper as well, and he showed that authority in his gameplay. Collier, like I said, he started in the double pivot, but ended up more as a cam. He was the engine in there. He's not very creative. His game is quite basic, but it's needed. He reminds me a little bit of a McTominay, but with less of a goal threat. But that engine, that legs, that physicality, which can be vital, especially in the Premiership. So yeah, he was decent in both phases of the game, in defence and in the attacking phase. Dan Gore grew into the game. The more possession we had, the more control of the game we had, the more he grew into it. So I gave him a 6. He was tidy on the ball, and at times he went beyond, and at times he dropped in and got it to feet. So he varied his game very well. He made it hard for the opposition to pick him up. They didn't know where he was going to be. Shea Lacey, I gave him a 6. He got us up the pitch with some good ball carries. He was just a constant threat. He was always attracting 2 players that were always trying to double up on him and stop him from coming in on his left foot. He was tidy in possession. However, nothing really came off for him, so to speak. It was always like I was kind of waiting for him to kind of show that level, to show he's kind of a cut above the rest of the academy players. And I wouldn't say he done that. However, he did have a good game. Williams was probably one of the more disappointing players from the academy. I gave him a 5. Positionally, he was all wrong. He kept coming inside. He wasn't holding his width when he's supposed to hold his width. He's kind of kept taking the easy option rather than going at his fullback, rather than holding the width, rather than running in behind. He kept coming inside, trying to get it to feet and do neat and tidy stuff. We don't need you to do that. We got Dan Gore in there. We got even the left back, Harry and Mass in there. We got enough players to do all that link up and tidy stuff. You need to be stretching teams. You need to be high and wide. You need to be beating your fullback and getting crosses in for your striker. So yeah, however, in the last like 5 minutes, all of a sudden he started to do those things. He started to run at his fullback, or he started to cut onto his right foot, whipping a great cross. Even one time he went down the line, whipped in a great cross with his left foot. So he showed he's got the ability. I already know he's got the ability, but just that mindset, just that mentality to keep doing it. Like I said, in the first half, you had the likes of Dorgo and Mbeumo. Although nothing was coming off, they had worse games than Williams overall, but they kept trying. They kept trying. That mentality where they're saying they keep going even when it's not working out for them. Do you know what I mean? Wheatley, I gave him a 5.5. Led the line well, strong, quick, clumsy at times with his touches. His link-up play isn't the best, but he's a handful. He's a handful, and he's a goal threat. He's a goal threat. He got in the end of one of the crosses, but he was well defended by the Wrexham. But I think it was Connor Cody. Well defended, so not enough to trouble the keeper. So yeah, those are my scores. Those are my player ratings. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. Let's look forward to our next preseason game, which I'll be doing a review or a reaction on that as well. Until then, like, subscribe,